You're watching Global Trade This Week with Pete Mento and Doug Draper.
Good afternoon, Global Trade This Week friends. This is the episode that you have been waiting for. Myself, Doug Draper, I'm one of your hosts. Pete Mento on the other side of the coast is going to be joining, and we're talking about 2023 predictions, and I'm super excited. Pete, what do you think? You ready for the show?
Look at this hat, Doug. I mean, does this hat not scream guy making predictions? Does this hat not scream festive end of year prediction show?
Yes.
I want to thank Walmart for taking $9 of my dollars and giving me this hat in return.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was the Johnny Carson? What was his character's name when he put that hat on?
Karnak the Magnificent.
Yes, there you go. And I would liken it to something of that nature. So.
Doug, I loved Karnak. I loved that gag. It was fantastic.
I don't know. It doesn't play very well. I think it looked, and just like movies, when I'm with my kids and we're talking about movies like The Breakfast Club, we watched that about a year ago, and 15, 20 minutes into it, they're on their phones, completely bored out of their mind. And I'm just like, this is one of the best movies of all time, blah, blah, blah. They could care less. So I don't know if Karnak is going to hold up the way it would in 2023.
Well, we're dads and we do like the corny jokes. I mean, I can't speak for you, pal, but as far as I'm concerned, I do enjoy a corny joke from time to time. So Johnny Carson is just chock full of stupid jokes. So I just don't like the old ones, buddy. If I must be honest about it. So yeah. I'm still okay with Karnak, and I'm still okay with Ed McMahon and, all the other things that came on there. I loved it when the guy from the San Diego Zoo would come on. I loved Don Rickles. I loved all of it, pal. So I'm still okay with it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's jump into this thing. We got quite a few predictions. I'm excited to hear what yours are. I know our audience can't wait to laugh or cry or ponder some of our pontifications, as I mentioned in the hype video earlier. So with that being said, Pete, I'll just roll it out to you. Prediction number one.
Yeah. So prediction number one is a bit of a twofer here. So I'm going to squeeze two together. And that is that the U.S. economy is going to be in a correction, not a crisis. So we're probably looking at a double dip recession. So we had two quarters of backward GDP growth or lack of growth. And that along with what I believe will be continued backward, lack of growth and bad situations for unemployment should be the case for probably Q2, Q3, at least, maybe even Q4, which is going to be, the dictionary definition. And then on top of that, I think we're also going to see at least one high profile bankruptcy in our industry, maybe more. So all the King's horses and all the King's men situation, I think there's going to be some people who are dumb with money through the course of the pandemic, who overinvested in some silly things and are going to find themselves on the wrong end of, some bankruptcy papers here, pal. So that is probably a very unpopular opinion, given the kind of cash that just flew out of everybody's pockets to move containers around the world. But I'm going to stick by that one. I think you're going to see a couple of high-profile logistics bankruptcies in the next 12 months.
Well, I like that one because we spoke many times about the explosion of acquisitions and money coming into our industry and the logic tech, the log tech. So that one has me interested. I can't wait to see how that transpires.
Yeah. Hit me, buddy. What's your first one?
All right. So my first one could be one of those that doesn't seem to be much of a prediction, but there's going to be a lot of overcapacity across all lanes and transportation modes. We're starting to see that rail, air, ground, ocean. But the one thing that I wanted to point out is that I think ocean freight and air freight will correct themselves a lot quicker than the other ones. And really air freight that I've seen a couple of things that A lot of capacity came into market, but I've seen some trends that air freight is starting to pull out of selling services direct to forwarders and non-asset based companies. And they're taking their asset, which is a very expensive a piece of equipment, and they're putting it in the hands of asset-based carriers. So they are leasing their planes to the DHLs and the UPSs of the world and other contract cargo across the country, or across the world. So by taking it out of service in the sense that they're not going to be selling directly to non-asset-based carriers, they're going to put those to work and sell them just as basically an asset to get out there. So that will adjust the air freight prices quickly because it'll essentially take capacity out of the market. And then we've talked about the ocean freight, how it's essentially one step away from the mafia, and they can turn on blank sailings and turn off those sailings pretty darn frequently. So I think that they have the ability to ratchet up and ratchet down and test the volume, if you will, to a right size their capacity constraints. So the overall capacity is a lot of capacity out there, but air freight and ocean freight are going to correct themselves probably mid-year 2023. Prediction 1.
Yeah, mid-year, maybe even earlier, but I think this is going to be a really tough year for carriers. Tough in that they were just making money hand over fist. I mean, it was just the golden age of bonuses and rates. And I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be a correction. Air freight's a fascinating one. We're just now beginning to see those rates begin to come down and capacity to be corrected. I'm not really comfortable predicting on that one. And a big reason for that is because I don't see the big electronic doodad that would normally, jump out there next year. Is there big iPhone releases? What I think could save air freight is continued hostilities in Eastern Europe. I'm not sure that's even going to be enough to do it, to be very honest with you, man. Mm-hmm. So, you could be right on that one. I guess time will tell. People are acting like that's a really Captain Obvious. I don't think it's so obvious. I think there are ways that air freight can pull itself back out of it. I think ocean freight is doomed. I think it's just doomed. I think those rates are going to be absolutely in the toilet next year.
Interesting. All right.
So,
keep going.
I think that at least one U.S. governor next year will declare a war on crime. And what I mean by that is a high profile, what's the term that they use? Zero, what do they call it when there's no,
zero tolerance?
Zero tolerance almost. If you steal a pack of gum from the Walgreens, you're getting rolled up kind of, I think somebody might go as far as to actually even call it the National Guard in some American cities. I think it's going to get to that point. I think that there are some American cities that are just sick and tired of it. And what does it have to do with global trade this week? It has a lot to do with global trade this week. You have retailers who are having a hard time living up to their insurance standards. You have people who are afraid to go out into retail settings right now. They're afraid. So there are major American cities now where people are actively not going into retail establishments because of fear. They don't want to deal with appointment shopping. So, the e-commerce thing is great and all, but it's actually hampering movement of inventory. I think you're going to see a political pushback on this, Doug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would, speaking from a personal experience here in Denver, in Colorado, the whole concept of the donut, people are leaving downtown. It's happening here in Denver. And to be honest with you, it's already happened because of those reasons. I mean, it's not safe. It's not enjoyable. Things have been, it's just not a good look. I love the fact that Denver's downtown was bustling and happening, and it needs to pivot and come back, because what you just described is happening in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, I miss the fact that Manchester's was kind of sleepy, but now it's sleepy for the wrong reasons. People are genuinely afraid. It's just not the city I grew up in. But if I can throw one more at you, I think that this is the year, I know people thought that last year was the crypto correction. No. This will be the year of the crypto correction. Much like the NFTs had their moment in the sun abruptly taken away from them, this will be the year that most of, especially the pretender and cryptos, will find a great financial correction. I'm not so sure about Bitcoin, but I think many of these pretenders are going to find them, most of their value eroded. And Bitcoin will have a correction of its own, but not to the degree that these other ones will. I think this is the year the pretenders are sorted out. This is the year that you begin to find a normal level to what its value is, and we begin to see some rationality brought to that market. Mm-hmm. I bet Keenan wishes this was the week that he was on the show instead of last week.
Absolutely. All right. So my next one is maybe another Captain Obvious, but I think there's a couple of things here. Number one, electric vehicles and EV is really poised to dominate last mile. Mm-hmm. And I think that we saw a pivot where electric vehicles kind of migrated to the final mile. It's just, having the technology to have a semi drive 500 miles across the country just isn't there yet. It makes for a good headline story. But the bottom line is that electric vehicles final mile is really going to blast off. And I want the audience to think about this, right? There's this bell curve of innovation. And I don't know exact all of them, but there's the innovators, the early adapters, and then the majority, and then the folks that are late to the game. Mm-hmm. So the innovators in electric vehicle final mile delivery have happened in 2022. The early adapters are really going to take off in 2023. You're going to see some creative EV distribution models. Some of that could be electric vehicles in the sense of scooters and bikes. But I think that the piece on this one, Pete, I'm trying to understand or trying to convey to our audience is that 2022 was the innovators of final mile electrification. 2023 is early adapters, and that is a sharp bell curve climb. And so I think we're going to see that as a big topic. It's going to be a lot more players in the industry, and it's going to get a lot of buzz. And we, as the consumers, are going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I agree, Doug. I think that the people that poured money into this, that are beginning to see results, they're going to be the big winners. And the people that did not see the results, so their innovation failed, they're going to have to pull out of the market. They're not going to have the money to continue to invest. So it's going to be ugly. And then the next thing will be the final mile people that are doing the delivery vehicles. I don't think it's going to be the autonomous stuff. It's going to be the people that are making the mail trucks and the rest of it, where there's still people driving them. They'll be the ones that'll be that next wave. We'll see what the next couple of years bring with that. But I completely agree with you. Yeah. All right. So my next one, last year I said Russia's going to invade. This year, I think Russia's going to be forced to negotiate. And I'm going to explain why. I think that Ukraine will make it through the winter. I think that Ukraine will fight. Ukraine will find themselves bolstered by incredible technology provided to them by the West, particularly Patriot missile systems. And in doing so, will find themselves in a position ready for a spring offensive, ready for a summer offensive, and facing a Russia who is looking down the barrel of a very unpopular war with its own people and running out of people to conscript. So it really puts Putin in a difficult situation. And he could be facing a mutiny of people who support him. So I think that about this time next year, before the next winter, so probably late fall of 2023, you may finally see a willingness for Vladimir Putin to actually be sitting down and to begin the negotiations for a ceasefire, and not a surrender, but a ceasing to the conflict between Russia and
Ukraine. Interesting. Well, you had probably the bold prediction of the year last year when you talked about Russia invading Ukraine. So we'll see how this one pans out. And I think you're spot on. It can only go on so long before something needs to transpire. So My next one, I was going to use the term e-commerce, but there was a post that you made recently, Pete, about e-commerce this and e-commerce that, and it's almost used too much. So I'm just going to say like online retailing, but it's going to have an explosion, not from a pandemic perspective, but with a couple of key things. One, interactive shopping, voice search, and immersive shopping, right? So now you can access things online, TikTok or Facebook and things of those nature. And when you click on it, it takes you to their static or not static, but their website, right? It doesn't really take you to the next level of shopping and engaging the user. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of clicking on pictures, and then it's going to immerse yourself into the experience, not just dive into the web or send a link to say, here's a web that you can pull up. I don't have a lot of specifics on how that's going to look, but I've seen, my kids out there looking at it. But clicking on TikTok, clicking on a video, be able to, have kind of like a dressing room effect with putting different styles on, I think is really going to drive the online retailing. The other piece is going to be payment options are going to continue to increase. More options equal more purchases, kind of the one click where you don't have to type in a credit card or have them remember it, where it's a one-touch type of thing where you can have your information saved and your payment goes through immediately. And then installment payments have been a big thing, and I think that will continue to grow. Digital wallets, QR codes that you can scan and take you to a site to take care of it. So I think you're going to see the experience of the consumer really take off with immersive shopping options, which is going to make it easier to push buy, which will continue to drive online retailing and e-commerce. Last couple of years, it was COVID related. This coming year is going to be all about immersive shopping and making it a whole heck of a lot easier to push the button and buy things. So I think we're going to get a blip. How does that relate to transportation and logistics? The easier it is to say buy and purchase something, the more product is going to drive through the system. So there's going to be an increase in e-tailing and e-commerce, my friend.
Yeah. And let me tell you why I wholeheartedly agree with that, Doug. So you have giant e-retailers like Amazon, giant e-retailers, who's, by the way, they got cash, right? You have a lot of retailers, period, that are sitting on cash. And they do not have a consumer base that is hungry to take on more debt. So they're not hungry to take on a credit card. So the idea of them clicking on for a new, retail-driven MasterCard that's branded with this retailer at 30% is not getting a lot of takers right now. But the idea of buying $250, $300 worth of material at a click that they can pay for over 4 or 5 installments at 0% interest, that's being actually funded by the retailer, that they'll play around with. And being able to do that without the surety of a bank behind it, looking at past purchasing seems to be something folks are actually open-minded to do. So I agree with you 100%. I think that this is actually more important than people realize. I think that you're about to see the credit card companies and the banks begin to really pay attention to e-commerce, because part of them is about to get cut out of the actual, they're going to get cut out of the process. They're not going to like it. So they're going to start talking about how can we get more engaged with the platforms? What can we do to become more important with it? And you make a great point, Doug. It's too easy. It's too easy to clickety click. And the credit card companies don't want to be left out of that, because they were part of the reason why it was so easy to shop that way. So,
yeah, just another evolution. All right, my friend.
So
let's keep it
I'm
rolling.
going to give you a political triple play. They're all somewhat related. It's more of a quadruple play. And they're all related. Okay. So first is, I believe that you're going to start to hear in the spring the call for a referendum on Brexit. So I think that the UK is going to request a new vote on Brexit. I think the economy is going to hit stagflation in the UK hard, and you're going to have a call for people to enter back into the European Union. I'm not sure Europe's going to want them back. right? I believe that you're going to see a vocal consideration, if not an actual execution, of Macron, the president of France, to resign. I think he might actually do it. But number three, I believe that President Trump will be brought up on charges. I don't think it's just going to be like a call to have him brought up on charges. I think you're going to see the Senate demand that he's brought up on charges. And lastly, I believe that President Biden will be impeached by the Congress. I don't think it won't make it past the Senate, but he will be impeached. So you'll have, in our short lifetime, another president impeached, my friend. It's almost like, it's like a rite of passage. You know, if you're going to be president, you got to get impeached. The Senate won't hold it up, but Congress absolutely will. So you're going to see a year of international political upheaval.
Interesting. Well, if you know how to polarize an audience, one topic to bring up would be Trump. So I think you just did that
and
with
Biden,
your comments.
And Macron and basically British politics. Dude, I hit all of them with one. Like, I think you're going to see hard right European politics begin to really matter, and hard left US politics begin to have some interesting, truly fascinating repercussions. But more important than anything, every single political leader of the spectrum worldwide is going to be called to task because of economic concerns. It's just how it's going to be then.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not one.
That makes complete sense. So, all right, I'm winding this down. I just have one more. And the whole, it's related to nearshoring and reshoring is going to gain a lot of momentum. And we could actually take that from a Who, the band, the Who song, Won't Get Fooled Again. The difference between companies reacting to, holy shit, my stuff is on the water, how do I get it in my consumer's hand? That's reactive. Now that things have calmed down, this can be more strategic, and strategic will allow it to set up manufacturing, review how you source raw materials, and there's more time to set it up and take care of it, so we won't get fooled again with the pandemic craziness that transpired. So that means companies that may have been thinking about it, that had to pivot hard right during COVID, are going to flourish and look at nearshoring. I think the nearshoring is going to be more popular than bringing things back here to the U.S., although that will certainly gain some momentum. So I think you're going to see that. I think people are going to promote it. Companies are going to promote it and hype it because now they have time to strategically insert themselves into a more stable supply chain than a reactive, oh my God, what just happened to us? And the C-suite people at a company are just, everybody's got their hair on fire, kind of like that scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, whenever when they were calling into the principal's office and the principal's running around and it's going crazy. So that's a pretty pathetic analogy there, Pete. But anyway, I think you understand my point with reshoring and nearshoring is going to gain some serious momentum, and we're going to hear about it because companies are going to want to know that they're doing it.
Do you think Keenan knows who the Who is?
Yeah, I think he does.
Do you think that Keenan, like, how absolutely cool the Who was? Like, while everybody else was sitting there playing three chords with their suits on, like the Who was breaking their crap on stage, and like the Who was awesome. The Who was awesome.
Yeah, that was. If you take a step back and you hear about the British invasion from the late '60s, I mean, if you just start clicking off all of the bands that came over that you and I still talk about and have relevance, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. It was a true impact.
Oh yeah. We might have to make Keenan a new mixtape to get him through the ski season, snowboarding season. Pardon me. But there's a really important line from that song, right? And I think that American companies are learning it now. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And the reason I bring that line up is I have had some really weird, uncomfortable calls over the past week, Doug, where many of my clients have learned that their Vietnamese, Cambodian, Thai suppliers are owned by Chinese companies. The factory, like, it's no different. The money's all going back to the same place. The supply chain is it's just been like pushed to a different country. There's absolutely no difference. they're in some cases, they're actually dealing with the same central authority. It's just being produced in another country. And I think that could end up being a real problem for some folks because, and this is a huge distinction, America is sincerely talking about that next level of sanctions beyond the section, the 3.1s and the 3.21s about doing these 3.37s, which are like brutal on an entire industry out of China. So where do you go? You go to Europe, you go to Mexico, Central America, Latin America, and even then, so I think that nearshoring and offshoring beyond these, nations that are so deeply influenced by China because of Belt and Road, I think that it's going to be incumbent on the buyer beware, to know who they're buying from and to understand the supply chains of these people that they're nearshoring with. And I think there's going to be a lot of people who are thinking, I'm buying some automotive parts or I'm buying electronics or whatever from this super awesome supplier in Vietnam or, Colombia or whatever. And it turns out it's just basically Chinese stuff that's, been tested and packaged someplace in Bogota and sent up through Mexico, and people are going to be screwed. So I hope for their sanity that the people that are doing all that work are really looking into just how sustainable and how strong their supply chains are. So, and that leaves me with my last one. So, I read this a couple of months ago and I thought this is absolutely ridiculous. And then it started to gain some traction. I believe that a country will propose by like 2030 or 2025. They'll propose it this year that by 2020, 30 or 2025, one of them, that they're going to put an almost prohibitive tax on meat that was raised or produced in a corporate fashion in their own country. And that it will eventually be part of a plan to make it illegal to produce livestock for consumption in their own country. So what I mean by that is that a country most likely like Sweden or Denmark or Norway, so probably like one of those countries, will make it effectively illegal to raise livestock for human consumption in their country. And that if you want to import it, or if you do want to raise it to sell, it will be taxed to high heaven. And they'll do so because of carbon and emissions and health concerns in an attempt to get people to push towards, Doug, you and I will just sit here in blue jeans, dressed like Bruce Springsteen in the 80s, eating ribeyes the whole time it's happening. I'm telling you right now, cold, dead. I mean, my arteries filled, clogged up with plaque hands. You are not taking steak away from me. It's wrapped in bacon, dipped in beef tallow. Bring it on, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. About halfway through that, Pete, I just started thinking about a steak that I want to grill that gets seared on the outside and everything else.
You know what I started thinking about? Pork tenderloin, pal. How nice does that sound right now?
Yes, and that's the meat of choice for Christmas, as our audience may know from a previous episode.
God. Maybe a ham. Oh, God. Oh, you know what would be nice? Some venison. That also sounds fantastic. Santa, a little venison. But I think that this is coming. And I think that it will be used as the test case for states, certain U.S. states, to actually consider it as well. And then, my friend, everyone's moving to New Hampshire. So we welcome you with open arms.
Nice. I like that. That is one hell of a prediction to end on. I love it. I love it. I tell you what, our audience did not see that one coming. I can guarantee it.
But it has a lot to do with trade. I think that, taxation and tariffs on things where you're trying to make changes with regards to environmental policy are going to become more and more likely, so I think we're going to see more and more of that. We'll see, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah. So, I'm taking us out, right? Because you brought us in. Is that how that works? Do I get to make the happy holidays bye-bye? Is that what's going to happen here?
we flipped a coin for the hat, and you got it. So yes, you can send us out.
Well, on behalf of all of us here at Global Trade this week, and of course from our sponsor, are the good people at Cap Logistics, we want to wish everyone a happy and healthy and safe holiday season. And we certainly do hope that you all enjoyed our content this year. And we hope that we'll see you for even more next year. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, and whatever else it is that you happen to celebrate. And Doug, Merry Christmas to you and your family. And Keenan, Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. And I cannot wait for another year of sharing these crazy stories and ideas, halftime and all the rest. And thank you for always being here, buddy. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, man. This has been a fun ride.
Absolutely. Merry Christmas.
All right. Merry Christmas.